jazz. Um, I could support a term like American classical music. See, the thing about music that they call jazz is that it's improvised. And to that degree, the so-called jazz musician replaces the composer. I've been thinking about this recently, and I did a little research on SACEM, the collection agency. I belong to it. It was founded in 1859, and it grew out of a dispute between a composer whose work was being played in a club in Paris and the fact that he wasn't getting any money for it. It became a big hit, this song that he wrote. So apparently a group of musicians got together around him, and SACEM was founded at that same time, and he began to be paid for his composition being played each night. That may not seem so relevant, but when you think of people like Cole Porter, Irving Berlin, Rodgers and Hart, you really begin to get an idea of the importance of the composer and composer's rights being observed. The thing, but when we get to so-called jazz music, that's when the composer's rights become totally blurred. Because, like the computer, jazz, if you want to call it, is actually a revolutionary event in terms of music notation. It completely reverses the role of the composer. A good jazz man can give you a composition just like that. No matter, he may be playing a song written by Cole Porter. Now, let's take Charlie Parker. Today I can go buy a book of all of his solos, written note for note, just as he played them. Now, the song may have been written by Cole Porter, so Charlie Parker doesn't get anything. That's jazz. Anybody could do that. That's the idea. See, because SACEM was created in the 19th century. They never crossed over into the 20th century.
They don't know what is SACEM.
It's his music collection society. It's the CIA.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same as the CIA in Italy. SCI.
CIA.
Yeah, but they say it like that. The CIA, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
The CIA. But it's a collection society. But they never crossed over into the 20th century. Because when the first so-called jazz music began to be played, when white people became hip to it, see, because black people were playing it before white people were really aware of it. It wasn't until Hugh Panessier in 1920 something wrote about Louis Armstrong that people in France began to become hip to who Louis Armstrong, and Italy and in Europe. They didn't know who he was. And probably most Americans didn't know who he was. The records that they sold at the time even had to have a label. They were called race records.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you would know right away that it was something done by a black musician. So, but the point I'm getting at is that jazz. Take a Louis Armstrong solo, West End Blues, recorded in 1925. He plays a solo that somebody copied down. Now probably made $1 million off it. But it's his introduction to the West End Blues with Earl Hines. Every trumpet player who plays the trumpet learned that solo because it was written down. Louis Armstrong never got a dime for it. He was not considered a composer. It's the word composer that creates the problem. Because after 1920, or probably before that, with the creation of so-called jazz and blues music, the possibility of instant composition became extant. We were suddenly, Charlie Parker said that. He says, well, people often ask me why I come late or why I don't want to play or like that. He says, well, I feel like a painter. If I told the painter, okay, paint me a painting. He says, I feel the same way about music. I must feel like playing music. But the interesting thing about Parker is that when you could say, Bird, paint me a painting. And he would paint you a painting. He might be playing a song called, I think this is Rodgers and Hart. Ba-be, da-da-dee-dee-da, dee-dee-dee-dee-da, dee-dee-da-da-dee-dee-da-dee-dee-da. Just the way you look tonight. Now, he put that on the record. That's what the song is called. The Way You Look Tonight. He never plays the melody throughout the whole tune. You don't even hear the melody. And if you didn't know that kind of music, you wouldn't know what he was playing. So he could have put concerto in 12 tones. But he didn't know. The guy who wrote the tune got all the money. He never got a dime for that. His solo, you can find in a book. I mean, and then when you figure it, and I would ask many a young person today, are you listening to The Way You Look Tonight because you like Rodgers and Hart? Or, I mean, are you a big fan of Cole Porter's? I do like their music. But to tell you the truth, the reason I got into that music was because of Bird. And that community, you know, because there was a community of cats around Bird that you couldn't, you know, from J.J. Johnson and, you know, of course Dizzy, who was and he's a world unto himself. John Burks Gillespie. Yeah.